One of the joys of being a reader is that one book can connect you to other books and other frames of reference, other points of view. When I was in college, I started reading travel books by an author named Paul Theroux. This Boston-based writer worked in the Peace Corps in Africa, and as he grew older, he traveled around the world and would write books about his adventures. He would write novels and straightforward travel narratives talking about the highs and lows of his travels. What makes Theroux an interesting travel writer is that he would never leave out anything negative that happened on the journey. If he had a journey around England's coastal towns, for example, he wouldn't hide negative impressions of the people there or the situations he encountered. This was the crux of the book. If he wrote a book where everything was perfect and wonderful, what would be the point of writing it, right? So, in his writings, he talked about his appreciation of a friend he knew named V.S. Naipaul. And this led me to reading books by this travel author. V.S. Naipaul grew up in the Caribbean and got his education in Britain on a scholarship and wrote about his travels around the world. And he traveled to India, to Africa, and he gained a sense for different points of view from the people he encountered and so forth. Their writings led me to discover the writings of Bernard Lewis. Bernard Lewis, who died a few years ago, was a premier Orientalist, and that term has fallen out of favor in 2020. But to me, the idea of an Orientalist is someone who is from the Western culture, who's striving to better understand the culture of the Middle East, of Asia, of different cultures foreign to his lands. So, to me, there's nothing negative about an Orientalist. It would be no more negative than someone from the Middle East attempting to learn more about the United Kingdom or Belgium or the United States. And his collection here, which was, I believe, his final book, was a wonderful read. I found at the library this book by Fouad Ajami, if I'm pronouncing that right. This book is an example of why it's so hard to write a timely or timeless book about the Middle East. This book is copyright 2006. I'm holding it in my hands here. And it was written at the peak of President George W. Bush's surge in Iraq. It's well written and it's timely for 2006. But as you're reading the chapters, they're all about the specifics of an American presence in Iraq going on forever and ever. And it's extremely dated. This was current history as it happened. And as interesting as the book might have been in 2006, when you read it in 2019 or 2020, it's all about events that are long in the past. After this book was written, America withdrew from Iraq. The Islamic State, the Daesh, the ISIS, they rampaged through the region. And so almost all of the concerns and questions about different tribes and sects of Islam and the different issues they had in 2006 about various foreign interlopers in Iraq, it's all kind of fallen by the wayside. And this is dated history. It's so thoroughly in the past, and events have moved on so far from 2006 that the book is fairly useless. And again, it's not Ajami's fault at all, but history moved quickly. And what I did glean from this book was he wrote of an appreciation of another Theroux. Another Theroux also wrote a book on his time in the Middle East. The book is called Sandstorms. So Peter Theroux was a journalist assigned largely to Saudi Arabia and also a translator of Arabic, which enabled him to intermingle through the region. And the fact that for some reason he was able to pass for someone from Turkey or Jordan or the Palestinian area, which enabled him to travel freely. And he wrote this book, Sandstorms, in 1990, and it was referenced by Ajami. And I managed to procure a hardcover. And this is actually a very interesting book because he writes from a translator's perspective. So he'll describe the etymology of various terms in Arabic that have come to us into English, such as macabre is an Arabic word, algebra is Arabic, and also about things you may not have known about our own culture. For example, he explains how a number of Jewish words and names are from ancient Babylon. The Jewish name Mordecai is a reference to the Babylonian god Marduk. So we're dealing with very ancient things and very new things in this book by Peter Theroux. And again, his perspective is that of a translator dealing every day with people with whom most Westerners would have no contact with. He wrote a book about an imam who was believed to have been killed in Libya. And in this way he explored the different relationships and feuds and squabbles in the Middle East. But he'd also gleaned some interesting details. That Muslim pride is based on the notion that Islam is newer and therefore more advanced than Judaism or Christianity. Islam is more advanced because it's newer. This is an attitude that many Christians had from the time of the Apostle Paul and onward, that Christianity was newer and therefore more advanced than Judaism. That the Iranian theocracy is very powerful because they could not believe that anything but the power of heaven could have driven America from Iran. And our government had installed Iran's leadership going back to the 1950s. So when the Shah of Iran was deposed, it was a minor territorial inconvenience to America, but it was seen as world-changing to Khomeini's students. But Theroux makes an interesting point here just about how powerful an idea can be. The idea that Iran's change in government was sanctioned by God. This is a book review of an old book, and like these other old books, are they relevant today? Of course they are. You can learn a lot by traveling around someone else's culture, and since most of us aren't inclined to do the travel themselves, what better way than by reading one of these authors? But I would certainly recommend starting with Paul Theroux and his travel writings, and just find out what there is to see around the world. And this man is an excellent guide and a great stepping point. And that's all. Thank you.